Hello, this is Rewind, Relax, Release. I'm your host, Daleena. This episode will be geared for sleep, so feel free to go ahead and start getting comfortable. Go ahead and make sure that your pillow is just right and adjust your blankets and settle in for a good night's sleep. And so as not to disturb your sleep later, I want to thank you for listening, and I would like to invite you to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help if you do those things, and share this with any of your friends that might enjoy it. If you have any questions, comments, or episode suggestions, please feel free to email me at rewindrelaxrelease@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and take care of yourself. You're worth it. Now let's get started. The power of touch. Some months ago, in a newspaper which announced the publication of Matilda Ziegler's magazine for the blind, appeared the following paragraph. Quote, "Many poems and stories must be omitted because they deal with sight. Allusion to moonbeams, rainbows, starlight, clouds, and beautiful scenery may not be printed because they serve to emphasize the blind man's sense of his affliction." End quote. That is to say, I may not talk about beautiful mansions and gardens because I am poor. I may not read about Paris and the West Indies because I cannot visit them in their tutorial reality. I may not dream of heaven because it is possible that I may never go there. Yet a venturesome spirit impels me to use words of sight and sound whose meaning I can guess only from the analogy and fancy. This hazardous game is half the delight, the frolic of daily life. I glow as I read of splendors which the eye alone can survey. Allusions to moonbeams and clouds do not emphasize the sense of my affliction. They carry my soul beyond affliction's narrow actuality. Critics delight to tell us what we cannot do. They assume that blindness and deafness sever us completely from the things which the seeing and the hearing enjoy, and hence they assert that we have no moral right to talk about the beauty of the skies, mountains, the song of birds and colors. They declare that the very sensations that we have from the sense of touch are vicarious, as though our friends felt the sun for us. They deny any propori that they have not seen and I have felt. Some brave doubters have gone so far even as to deny my existence. In order, therefore, that I may know that I exist, I resort to Descartes' method. I think, therefore I am. Thus I am metaphysically established, and I throw upon the doubters the burden of proving my non-existence. When we consider how little has been found out about the mind, is it not amazing that anyone should presume to define what one can know or cannot know, I admit that there are innumerable marvels in this visible universe unguessed by me. Likewise, O confident critic, there are a myriad of sensations perceived by me of which you do not dream. Necessity gives the eye a precious power of seeing, and in the same way it gives the precious power of feeling to the whole body. Sometimes it seems as if the very substance of my flesh were so many eyes looking out at will upon a world new created every day. The silence and darkness, which are said to shut me in, open my door most hospitably to countless sensations that distract, inform, admonish, and amuse. With my 3 trusty guides, touch, smell, and taste, I make many excursions into the borderland of experience, which is in sight of the city of light. Nature accommodates itself to every man's necessity. If the eye is maimed so that it does not see the beauteous face of the day, the touch becomes more poignant and discriminating. Nature proceeds through the practice to strengthen and augment the remaining senses. For this reason, the blind often hear with a greater ease and distinction than other people. The sense of smell becomes almost a new faculty to penetrate the tangle and vagueness of things. Thus, according to an immutable law, the senses assist and reinforce one another. It is not for me to say whether we see best with the hand or the eye. I only know that the world I see with my fingers is alive, ruddy, and satisfying. Touch brings the blind many sweet certainties which our more fortunate fellows miss, because their sense of touch is uncultivated. When they look at things, they put their hands in their pockets. No doubt that is one reason why their knowledge is often so vague, inaccurate, and useless. It is probable, too, that our knowledge of phenomena beyond the reach of the hand is equally imperfect. But all events we behold them through a golden mist of fantasy. There is nothing, however, misty or uncertain about what we can touch. Through the sense of touch, I know the faces of friends, the illimitable variety of straight and curved lines, all surfaces, the exuberance of the soil, the delicate shapes of flowers, the noble forms of trees, and the range of mighty winds. Besides objects, surfaces, and the atmospherical changes, I perceive countless vibrations. I derive much knowledge from everyday matter, from the jars and jolts which are to be felt everywhere in the house. Footsteps I discover very tactily according to the age, the sex, and the manners of the walker. It is impossible to mistake a child's patter for the tread of a grown person. The steps of a young man, strong and free, differs from the heavy, sedated tread of the middle-aged, and from the step of the old man whose feet drag along the floor or beat it with slow, faltering accents. On a bare floor, a girl walks with rapid, elastic rhythm, which is quite distinct from the graver step of the elderly woman. I have laughed over the creak of new shoes, and the clatter of a stout maid performing a jig in the kitchen. One day in the dining room of a hotel, a tactile dissonance arrested my attention. I sat still and I listened with my feet. I found that two waiters were walking back and forth, but not with the same gait. A band was playing and I could feel the music, waves along the floor. One of the waiters walked in time to the band. It was graceful and light, while the other disregarded the music and rushed from table to table to the beat of some discord in his own mind. Their steps reminded me of a spirited war steed harnessed with a cart horse. Often the footsteps reveal in some measure the character and mood of the walker. I feel them in firmness and indecision, hurry and deliberation, activity and laziness, fatigue, carelessness, timidity, anger, sorrow. I am most conscious of these moods and traits in persons with whom I'm familiar. Footsteps are frequently interrupted by certain jars and jerks, so that I know when one kneels, kicks, shakes something, sits down, gets up. Thus I follow to some extent the actions of the people around me and the changes of their posture. Just now a thick, soft patter of bare, padded feet and a slight jolt told me that my dog had jumped on a chair to look out the window. I do not, however, allow him to go uninvestigated, for occasionally I feel the same motion, and I find him not in the chair, but trespassing on the sofa. When a carpenter works in the house or in a barn nearby, I know by the slanting up and down tooth vibration and the ringing of concussion of blow upon blow that he is sawing or hammering. If I am near enough, a certain vibration traveling back and forth along the wooden surface brings me the information that he's using a plane. A slight fluffer on the rug tells me that the breeze has blown my papers off the table. A round thump is a signal that a pencil has rolled onto the floor. If a book falls, it gives a flat thud. A wooden rap on the balustrade announces that dinner is ready. Many of these vibrations are obliterated out of doors. On a lawn or the road, I can only feel the running and stamping and rumbles of wheels. By placing my hand on a person's lips and throat, I gain an idea of specific vibrations and interpret them. A boy's chuckle, a man's whoof, a surprise, the hem of annoyance or perplexity, the moan of pain, a scream, a whisper, a rasp, a sob, a choke, and a gasp. The utterance of animals, though wordless, are eloquent to me. The cat's purr, its mew, its angry, jerking, scolding spit, the dog's bow wow of warning or joyous welcome, its yelp of despair and its contented snore, the cow's moo, the monkey's chatter, the snort of a horse, the lion's roar, and the terrible snarl of the tiger. Perhaps I ought to add, for the benefit of the critics and the doubters who may peruse this essay, that with my own hands I have felt all of these sounds. From my childhood to the present day, I have availed myself to every opportunity to visit zoological gardens, menageries, and the circus, and all the animals except the tiger have talked into my hand. I have touched the tiger only in a museum where he is as harmless as a lamb. I have, however, heard him talk by putting my hand on the bars of his cage. I have touched several lions in the flesh and felt them roar like a cataract over rocks. I continue to know the plop of liquid in a pitcher, so if I spill my milk, I have not the excuse of ignorance. I am also familiar with the pop of a cork, the sputter of a flame, the tick-tack of a clock, and the metallic swing of a windmill, the labored rise and fall of the plump, voluminous spurt of a hose, the deceptive tap of a breeze at a door and a window, and many other vibrations past computing. There are tactile vibrations which do not belong to skin touch. They penetrate the skin, the nerves, the bone, like pain, heat, cold. The beat of a drum smites me through from the chest to the shoulder blades. The din of the train, the bridge and grinding of machinery retains its old man of the sea grip upon me long after its cause has been left behind. If vibration and motion combine in touch for any length of time, the earth seems to run away while I stand still. When I step off of the train, the platform whirls around, and I find it difficult to walk steady. Every atom of my body is a vibroscope, but my sensations are not infallible. I reach out and my fingers meet with something furry, which jumps about, gathers itself together as if to spring, and acts like an animal. I pause for a moment of caution. I touch it again more firmly, and find it is a fur coat fluttering and flapping in the wind. To me, as to you, the earth seems motionless, and the sun appears to move. For the rays of the afternoon draw more and more as they touch my face, until the air becomes cool. From this, I understand it is how the shore seems to recede as you sail away from it. Hence, I feel no incredulity when you say that the parallel lines appear to converge, and the earth and the sky meet. My few senses long ago revealed to me their imperfections and deceptivity. Not only are the senses deceptive, but the numerous usage in our language indicate that people who have 5 senses find it difficult to keep their functions distinct. I understand that we hear views, see tones, taste music. I am told that voices have color. Tact, which I suppose to have a matter of a nice perception, turns out to be a matter of taste. Judging from the large use of the word, taste appears to be the most important of all the senses. Taste governs the great and the small conventions of life. Certainly the language of the senses is full of contradictions, and my fellows who have all 5 doors to their house are not more surely at home in themselves than I. May I not then be excused if this account of my sensations lacks precision? This essay is called Finer Vibrations. I have spoken of the numerous jars and jolts which daily ministers to my faculties, the loftier and grander vibrations which appeal to my emotions are varied and abundant. I listen with awe to the roll of thunder and the muffled avalanche of sound when the sea flings itself upon the shore. And I love the instrument by which all the diapasons of the ocean are caught and released in surging floods, the many-voiced organ. If music could be seen, I could point where the organ notes go as they rise and fall, climb up and rock and sway, now loud and deep, now high and stormy, anon soft and solemn, with lighter vibrations interspersed between and running across them. I should say that organ music fills to an ecstasy the act of feeling. There is tangible delight in other instruments too. The violin seems beautifully alive as it responds to the lightest wish of the master. The distinction between its notes is more delicate than between the notes of the piano. I enjoy the music of the piano most when I touch the instrument. I keep my hand on the piano case, I detect tiny quavers, returns of melody, and the hush that follows. This explains to me how sound can die away to the listening ear, how thin and clear, and thinner, clearer, farther going. Oh, sweet and far from cliff and scar, the horns of Elfland faintly blowing. I am able to follow the dominant spirit and mood of the music. I catch the joyous dance as it bounds over keys, the slow dirge, the reverie. I thrill to the fiery sweep of notes crossed by thunderous tones, like Walküre, where wanton kindles the dreaded flame that guards the sleeping Brunhild. How wonderful is the instrument on which a great musician sings with his hands. I have never succeeded in distinguishing one composition from another. I think this is impossible, but the concentration and the strain upon my attention would be so great that I doubt if the pleasure derived would be commensurate to the effort. Nor can I distinguish easily a tune that is sung, but by placing my hand on another's throat and cheek, I enjoy the changes of the voice. I know when it is low or high, clear or muffled, sad or cheery. The thin, quavering sensation of an old voice differs in my touch from the sensation of a young voice. A southerner's drawl is quite unlike the Yankee twang. Sometimes the flow and ebb of a voice is so enchanting that my fingers quiver with exquisite pleasure, even if I do not understand the word that is spoken. On the other hand, I am exceedingly sensitive to the harshness of noise like grinding, scraping, and the hoarse creak of rusty locks. Fog whistles are my vibratory nightmares. I have stood near a bridge in the process of construction and felt the tactile din, the rattle of heavy masses of stone, the roll of loosened earth, the rumble of engines, the dumping of dirt carts, the trip blows of Vulcan hammers. I can also smell the fire pots, the tar and cement. I have a vivid idea of mighty laborers in steel and stone. I believe that I am acquainted with all the fiendish noises which can be made by man or machinery. The whack of heavy falling bodies, the sudden shivering splinter of chopped logs, the crystal shatter of pounded ice, the crash of a tree hurled to the earth by a hurricane, the irrational, persistent chaos of noise made by switching freight trains, the explosion of gas, the blasting of stone, and the terrific grinding of rock upon rock which precedes the collapse. All of these have been in my touch experience and contributed to my idea of bedlam, of battle, a waterspout, an earthquake, and other enormous accumulations of sound. Touch brings me into contact with the traffic and manifold activity of the city. Besides the bustle and crowding of people, the nondescript grating and electric howling of streetcars, I am conscious of exhalations from many different kinds of shops, from automobiles, drays, horses, fruit stands, and many varieties of smoke. Odorous, strange, and musty, the air sharp and dusty, with lime and with sand that no the street impassable, the people irascible, until everyone cries as he trembling goes with the sight of his eyes and the scent of his nose. Quiet stopped, or at least much diminished. Gracious, when will this city be finished? Copyright 1907 by the Whitman Studio, listening to the trees. The city is interesting, but the tactile silence of the country is always most welcome after the din of town and the irritating concussions of the train. How noiseless and undisturbing are the demolition, the repairs and the alterations of nature, with no sound of hammer or saw or stone severed from stone. But music rustles and ripe thumps on the grass, come fluttering leaves and mellow fruits, which the wind tumbles all day from the branches. Silently all droops, all withers, all is poured back into the earth, that it may recreate. All sleeps while the busy architects of the day and night ply their silent work elsewhere. The same serenity reigns when all at once the soil yields up a newly wrought creation. Softly the ocean of grass, moss, and flowers rolls surge upon surge across the earth. Curtains of foliage drape and bare branches. Great trees make ready in their sturdy hearts to receive against birds, which occupy their spacious chambers to the south and west. Nay, there is no place so lowly that it may not lodge some happy creature. The meadow brook undoes its icy fetters with rippling notes, gurgles, and runs free. And all this is wrought in less than 2 months to the music of nature's orchestra in the midst of balmy incense. The 1,000 soft voices of the earth have truly found their way to me. The small rustle in tufts of grass, the silky swish of leaves, the buzz of insects, the hum of bees in blossoms I have plucked, the feather of a bird's wings after its bath, and the slender rippling vibration of water running over pebbles. Once, having been felt, these loved voices rustle, buzz, hum, flutter, and ripple in my thought forever, an undying part of happy memories. Between my experiences and the experiences of others, there is no gulf of mute space which I may not bridge, for I have endlessly varied, instructive contacts with all the world, with life, with atmosphere whose radiant activity unfolds us all. The thrilling energy of all encasing air is warm and rapturous. Heat waves and sound waves play upon my face in infinite variety and combination until I am able to surmise what must be the myriad of sounds that my senseless ears have not heard. The air varies in different regions at different seasons of the year and different hours of the day. The odorous fresh sea breezes are distinct from the fitful breezes along the river banks, which are humid and freighted with inland smells. The bracing light, dry air of the mountains can never be mistaken for the pungent salt air of the ocean. The air of winter is dense, hard, compressed. In the spring it has a new vitality. It's light, mobile, and laden with 1,000 palpating odors from the earth, grass, sprouting leaves. The air of midsummer is dense, saturated or dry and burning as if it came from a furnace. When a cool breeze rushes the salty stillness, it brings fewer odors than in May, and frequently the odor of coming tempest. The avalanche of coolness which sweeps through the low-hanging air bears little resemblance to the stinging coolness of winter. The rain of winter is raw, without odor, and dismal. The rain of spring is brisk, fragrant, charged with life-giving warmth. I welcome it delightedly as it visits the earth, enriches the streams, waters the hills abundantly, makes the furrows soft with showers for the seed, elicits a perfume which I cannot breathe deep enough. Spring rain is beautiful, impartial, lovable. With pearly drops it washes every leaf on tree and bush, ministers equally to salutary herbs and noxious growths, searches out every living thing that needs its beneficence. The senses assist and reinforce each other to such an extent that I am not sure whether touch or smell tells me the most about the world. Everywhere the river of touch is joined by the brooks of odor perception. Each season has its distinctive odors. The spring is earthy and full of sap. July is rich with odor of ripening grain and hay. As the season advances, a crisp, dry, mature odor predominates, and goldenrod, tansy, an everlasting mark on the onward march of the year. In autumn, soft, alluring scents fill the air, floating from the thicket of grass and flower and tree, and tell me of time and change and death and life's renewal, desire, and its fulfillment.